Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Jordan Spurgeon. Thank you for joining us. Today is the deadline for filing federal taxes or filing a tax extension. This past spring, the IRS pushed back its usual April 15th deadline by more than a month, saying it wanted to be understanding given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. If you owe federal taxes and you don't pay on time, you could be hit with penalties and accrue interest. The IRS can charge you 5% of your unpaid taxes every month for late filing, maxing out at 25%. If you file your taxes on time but fail to pay, the IRS will charge you 0.5% per month. The ongoing Maricopa County 2020 audit has been paused as of Friday so local high school students can graduate at the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum. President Joe Biden won Maricopa County, a longtime Republican stronghold, by more than 45,000 votes, and he won the state by more than 10,000 votes. However, the Republican-controlled state Senate has undertaken a full-hand recount and audit of the ballots as well as the voting machines in Maricopa County. The audit is set to resume on May 23rd. A local sheriff is launching his own streaming network featuring sheriff's departments from across the country. Sheriff Mark Lamb from Pinal County says this is a passion project aimed to showcase law enforcement in the best way. Lamb says that no taxpayer dollars are being used for the project. The subscription-based network is called American Sheriff and will cost $4.99 per month. He says the money will go to the production crew, the digital aspects of the network, and eventually to some charities. Marshall Shore, known as Arizona's hip historian, is known for his vivid storytelling, cult-like following, and expertise on the history of the valley. Now he's writing himself into our state's history by purchasing a headstone for a gender pioneer from the early 1900s. Caitlin Keenahan has this intriguing story.
Imagine the way Arizona looked in the early 1900s. The streets, the people, with stories beyond the documented black and white.
People kept saying there was no history here.
But Marshall Shore sees history in color.
I'm known as Arizona's hip historian.
Also known as a local celebrity.
So I want to welcome you to Arizona History Happy Hour.
One of Marshall's friends, Erica KEPPLER, watched his audience skyrocket and said it's for a good reason.
He doesn't simply study history, he's actually trying to make a significant mark in it.
And Marshall made his footprint in history at Greenwood Cemetery in Phoenix, a lawn that celebrates the people who defined Arizona.
You can tell a lot about a city by going and visiting its cemetery and seeing its history.
To Marshall, each stone in Greenwood Cemetery represents a life with a story to share. But in the case of Nikolai DeRaylen, it was the absence of a headstone that made it so significant.
It's a really amazing story.
Nikolai DeRaylen visited Arizona to treat his tuberculosis.
It didn't go so well for him. He wound up passing away a few months later.
He left behind mounds of wealth and his beloved wife, Anna.
As they're ready for burial, they discovered that Nikolai was a woman. And so when they buried him here in Greenwood in 1906, they actually buried him in a dress and without a headstone.
Erica, who is also the founder of Arizona Trans Alliance, says his story is remarkable.
It really does say here's a person who managed to live a life with a tremendous secret that would have undoubtedly destroyed his life.
Nikolai had enough money to afford a traditional burial, but Marshall explained that his unmarked grave was a sign of disrespect.
Without a headstone, he was erased from time.
Then came an idea.
When I found out that we had a gender pioneer right here in Arizona from 1906, I started working with the local community to raise funds to get him a headstone.
It was really through his invitation I became a part of it.
They capitalized efforts through social media and word of mouth.
Going to bars and people giving money here, giving money there.
In 2 years, they raised over $3,000, but the question remained, what should it say?
It was my opinion that what we put on the headstone shouldn't be outing, should not out him as trans.
My friend Erica came up with this quote and I was like, oh my God, that is perfect.
A quote that speaks truth to Nikolai and the entire transgender community.
To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.
Now the headstone stands among the masses, securing Nikolai's spot in Arizona's LGBTQ history.
So that's one of the things I try to give those marginalized communities a voice.
A contribution that also writes Marshall into Arizona's story. In Phoenix, Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.
The Phoenix Suns continue to make Arizonans proud with their first playoff appearance in a decade. The playoff schedule isn't out just yet, but they're ending the regular season second in the Western Conference. And now a look back at some of our stories from the Arizona outdoors, from plans to build a new water pipeline in southern Arizona to how to adopt a desert tortoise.
The PASCUA YAQUI tribe in Tucson is the first community in Arizona to benefit from the U.S. Water Resource Development Act. The federal government will grant the Yaqui people $900,000 for a new water pipeline. Cronkite News reporter Caitlin Keenahan shares how the pipe will bring non-potable water hundreds of miles from Lake Havasu City.
The PASCUA YAQUI tribe has been rooted in this land for generations.
My children now have played in these fields, have actually grown up in these fields, just like a lot of tribal members here. We have the summer leagues, and then we have the fall leagues. Right. The biggest hurdle was water. How do we keep these fields green, and how do you keep this whole community intact?
Future generations face a problem. In 15 years, the tribe fears that they'll run out of water.
They told us there is no water here. There is nothing here for you. Why did you accept the land? We accepted it because our forefathers had walked through these lands. This is where they wanted to make and create a place for us to be safe, to be healthy, and to be able to practice our faith.
Here are the plans that were produced for the project.
Now, a new government program could help the Yaqui tribe ensure their future on the land, with money for a new pipeline. The act funds rural communities to develop new revenues of water. Democratic Congressman Greg Stanton recognized the need in rural areas of Arizona, and specifically the Yaqui tribe.
It was a perfect project for this new program that we were able to create in Congress.
Right now, the tribe gets a limited amount of drinkable water from the city of Tucson.
Every single year it's a struggle to meet that need. You know, our reservation, our population keeps growing.
And with more people, that means less water for things like gardening, laundry, and field upkeep.
This is a big issue across the state of Arizona, where we are using drinking water for purposes where we don't need to be using drinking water, and it's not a good use of drinking water.
The $1.2 million pipeline will bring the tribe water from the Central Arizona project. The pipeline's going to be installed nearly 6 feet underground, where it will span off and irrigate nearby parks, homes, and even the wellness center.
This just didn't happen overnight. This was probably over 2 years in the making. But in terms of boots on the ground time constructing this, you're looking at probably a 4-month time frame.
The construction will last a few months.
I want you to find the end with the cap on.
But the water source is expected to last for decades.
The elders used to tell us a saying, and it says, Enchi mampotawak. In Yaqui means, now it's in your hands. You're supposed to take care of it, nurture it, and develop it, and leave it for the next generation.
On the PASCUA YAQUI Reservation in Tucson, Caitlin Keenahan, Cronkite News.
Once the pandemic hit and more people became remote, Arizona's parks and trails saw an increase in use, but also saw an increase in visitor waste. Cronkite News reporter Sedona Meadows explores the environmental impact.
What we figured out is that overall, recreation in Arizona saw about a 35% increase during COVID. And I think those numbers are not going to go down. I think more and more people are able to work remotely and have found like the joy and the beauty of like, what is it like when you go for a hike or a bike ride?
Matthew Nelson is the executive director of Arizona Trail Association, an organization that works to protect and maintain Arizona trails spanning 800 miles from Mexico to Utah.
Our parks have reported that they're seeing people who they don't typically see, some people who are new to camping or new to getting out to state parks.
Michelle Thompson, Chief of Communications for Arizona State Parks and Trails, says that with new people enjoying the outdoors, there are new concerns.
Everywhere we've seen the result of people just dropping their personal protective equipment on the ground or just leaving it behind.
Arizona trail organizations are partnering with Leave No Trace to encourage visitors to keep nature wild. Arizona State Parks and Trails are distributing cleanup kits to motivate guests. Christine Vogt, director of the Center for Sustainable Tourism at Arizona State University, believes it goes beyond enforcement.
I think messaging and the facilities that are at parks play a role. But I think ultimately people have to care, and that caring can be learned by hanging out with other people that care. It can happen in educational settings for young people.
I feel like as people, we can either have light impact or we can have significant impact. And it's really just the consciousness of what are my potential impacts when I'm out in the wilderness.
If you're looking to visit Arizona state parks and trails, visitors are still required to follow all COVID-19 safety guidelines and are encouraged to leave no trace behind. Check out www.azstateparks.com for more information.
Imagine hiking up PASCUA Peak just to find a Japanese folk music performance. Cronkite News reporter Saran and Raboyne hiked up the mountain to show us what's been happening at sunrise.
At the top of PASCUA Peak during sunrise, something amazing happens. Ken KOSHIO, a Japanese folk artist, has hiked the mountain every day for almost a year to perform a prayer, carrying his taiko drum and instruments on his back. This prayer and ceremony has allowed him to start his day grounded in his culture and spirituality.
When the sun was up, I really feel connecting something, feeling in his soul.
This ceremony has now captured the attention of other hikers. Once people reach the top of the mountain, not only will they find Ken, but they'll find a community.
Here we're waiting for that every morning. I'm waiting to see my friends over here. We're like a small community of family, different languages. We all coming here to watch Ken and enjoy his spirit.
And while Ken's performance may be based around Japanese culture, everyone watching takes time to reflect upon their own ideals and beliefs.
Maybe what I've been doing inspired them to feel that. So maybe that gives them some kind of feeling.
So when I'm hiking, I'm not at home and he's doing the prayers. In the background, I'm doing prayers myself also.
While people of all cultures can relate to the performance, Ken maintains that it's all for his personal devotion.
Of course, this is basically for myself. And in some way, if I could inspire them, maybe they can inspire other people.
Something that started off as an individual tribute has now grown into a collective celebration of a new day. In Phoenix, Serena Raboyne, Cronkite News.
A desert tortoise may not be what comes to mind when you think about getting a pet, but the Arizona Game and Fish Department hopes you will. The agency is accepting applications to adopt tortoises. Cronkite News' Riley Walter tells us how it all works.
Each year, Arizona Game and Fish adopts captive desert tortoises that can't be released back into the wild because they can spread diseases.
There are currently 180 tortoises available for adoption, and only an Arizona resident can adopt a Sonoran desert tortoise. People must build a burrow for the tortoise to live in and show proof of it when they submit their application. It may seem unconventional to have a tortoise, but tortoises are actually easy to care for.
You plant some plants in your backyard, they'll just kind of graze themselves. You just give them water a few times a week. They're not going to make a big mess. So they're really, really easy to take care of, but they're also so cute and fun. Like you can just watch them running around and it's so cute.
Desert tortoises can live up to 80 to 100 years. You can submit your application to adopt a tortoise on the Arizona Game and Fish website. In the studio, Riley Walter, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Break It Down. That's next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.